All right, guys, here we are with the 02S 02J hybrid, driving around, and hopefully you guys can see the relationship between the tachometer and the speedo. Well, it's third gear, now we're in fourth, now we're in fifth, and it's pretty much the same as stock through fifth. And then of course we get into sixth gear. That's what we have at 60, about, well, a little below 60, it's about 1600 RPM. As the traffic clears out a little bit here, or at least starts to move along a little better, we'll go higher, you know, more like 75 or so, closer to what you see on the freeway. And kind of, you can then compare, you know, what the your own expectations are of your stock 5-speed. But yeah, I'm so far really liking this transmission. The shift action is definitely a little shorter and more precise as well, so I'm very happy with that. I actually did have a Audi TT OEM style, or at least a replica of it, short shifter, and it was almost too short for my liking, so I actually took that back off and went back to the stock Mk4 lever. And it now actually feels closer to what the TT short shifter did with the original 02J gearbox. And I'm very happy with that. It feels really awesome. So there we were just above 70 for a second there. And yeah, we were just barely humming along at 2000 RPM. Back up to speed with the traffic here. So there's about 75 indicated, which is actually a little slow compared to how, you know, most Mk4 clusters, they read a little fast. I'm actually, yeah, that's about dead on 75. And I'm probably closer to 2100 RPM from what I'm seeing here. And of course, if I go back down to fifth, resume, go back to 75. And yeah, we're pretty close to that 2600 RPM mark, which is exactly what it does from the factory. So yeah, I really like the gearing in this box, and of course we're keeping the relative simplicity of the old 02J design, just with a few improvements. Back to sixth. And if we briefly go up to about 80, and we're not even quite to 2300 RPM, well, maybe about right on 2300 RPM. So yeah, well, a little under 2300. Let's call it 22 and change. That's really nice, and it does quiet it down a little bit from what we're used to from the factory for sure. So yeah, really happy with that. And if you have the desire to do all that work, I would say it's well worth it for the end result. I will say that first gear is a little shorter. In most situations, I don't notice it, but maybe you might notice if you're going uphill, for example, a slow start uphill, you might realize there's a bit more of a gap between first and second than you're used to, but it's still very manageable unless you have low-end torque problems like you have with you know, bigger turbo setups, or, you know, my old turbo with 300,000 miles that I just replaced. I had the actuator adjusted a little too tight, just trying to prevent the overboost from happening. Yeah, really like that gear spacing. That's nice. That is really nice. At least in first gear, even though it's shorter, it still seems like it idles right about that 5 mile-an-hour mark. It's very unnoticeable difference there. But yeah, everything else, man, I'm really happy with the spacing of every other gear. Super happy with how this came out. So yeah, thanks for following along, and I might show you a couple other little finer details of what I've done. and some of my own personal preferences. And yeah, thanks for following along.